syrups after Indian cough syrups were linked to the death of 66 children in Gambia. The Indian Health Ministry has now clarified that samples of the cough syrups linked by the World Health Organization to dozens of deaths of children in Gambia have now been sent for tests, underlining that the products were made only for exports and not sold in India. After a prelim inquiry, the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization found that the 4 cough syrups made by Maiden Pharmaceuticals, suspected to have caused the death of children in Gambia, were exported only to the West African nation. Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Anil Arora, and we also have with us Dr. Ishwar Gilada. Let me begin this conversation with Dr. Gilada, if I can. Dr. Gilada, the Indian Health Ministry has now clarified that none of these medicines, this cough syrup, was not sold in India, and they're currently performing certain tests on the cough syrups to see what has gone wrong. What do you think would be the logical next steps based on the findings, given that 66 children have died in Gambia?
See, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. This is very crucial issue. There are 66 casualties, particularly children. Whether children die in India or Gambia, children are children. But I am more concerned about the WHO's role. You know, WHO Director General is a director of whole world. He is not director of Africa. It's an intergovernmental organization. If there is something wrong, he is suspected, he should have talked to Government of India, because that is the protocol. And he made a public statement by which India has been portrayed as a villain country, which is a pharma powerhouse of the world. If there is some impurity in some product, it doesn't mean that Indian drugs are bad. Secondly, no one knows whether the drug originated from the Indian factory reached in the same manner it was originated to Africa. Sometimes there are intermediary agencies, they buy in jars and then they repack in bottles and sell. And I am reminded of a happening which happened in 1986. There was a major scandal in Mumbai, JJ Hospital, when I was working there. There was a glycerol which was used for reducing the cerebral pressure in eye patients. And after this 14 patients died, then there was a Lentin Commission. Lentin Commission found that there were impurities to the extent of, say, diethyl and glycol and ethyl glycol in that glycerin also. To 89%, only 10% were the original glycerol. So what they found, that IP, that is an industrial product, and IP is the Indian pharmacopoeia. IP is a short, but that Indian pharmacopoeia is used for drug for human use, and IP is the industrial pure used for industrial use. That IP was industrial pure. That Alpana Pharma bought that drug from a market and they repacked and sold it. When it was found that this is a small repacking unit, they do not have any kind of research laboratory to find out what is the content of it. The 3 ministers from 81 to 86 were castigated by the Lentin Commission, but we have not learned the lesson. So there are 3 crucial things. Number 1, the licenses are issued by Government of India, which is the CDSCO, and also issued by state governments. Secondly, the licenses are issued for domestic market and international market. Thirdly, the 2 agencies of state and central government sometimes work in cohesion, but sometimes they work at cross purposes. Fourthly, we need to find out whether the drug really originated from this factory and it reached the Gambia in the same way, because it has not been notified from any other country, any other place than Gambia. So the matter should be investigated. We should learn from the history. We should protect the name of India. Whenever any upcoming country, upcoming person is there, that person or that country is in public eye. So people are likely to turn us down, put us down. So we should fight. It doesn't mean that we should fight for wrong things. If something is wrong, we should penalize. But at the same time, WHO should have maintained some kind of decency. WHO has not maintained decency during the COVID. They are still protecting China for 2.5 years. There are committees after committees after committees. None of the committee has ever said that China is involved, though everybody in the world except China knows that China is involved. Even Chinese people know that China is involved. So I think in such situation, Government of India stand is perfect. They should take the sample from that unit, analyze them as quickly as possible, come out with what are the contents, and the last and final warning to the people: Don't worry, there are cough syrups are used day in and day out, but we should have only prescription-oriented business. Currently, all you go anywhere in the country, you can buy cough syrup and lots of medicine except Schedule X drug from anywhere without prescription. So we should stop this non-prescription chemist practice that is more dangerous than anything else.
All right, Dr. Arora, let me bring you to the conversation as well, sir. What is your first take on the clarification that's been put out by India, and what do you really think India needs to do at this point in time, given the fact that 66 children have died and there has been some mishap in the entire supply chain? Somewhere, something has gone wrong, seriously.
Thank you, Devika, for having me on your show. I think first and most important is the very fact that Indian companies, which have been in the forefront and have been the leaders in the supply of the pharma drugs all across the world, it is a big setback. And the question is, was it a genuine problem originating at one place, or it is a perpetual problem, and some of the drugs manufactured by this company or other companies may have sneaked into other countries also, which may have not reported. For the time being, the government of India has done a good job by asking for the details from WHO regarding the nature of the deaths and the causal relationship between the drug and the cause of the death in these children. It has been documented by WHO that there have been contamination of both ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol in these 4 syrups, which is promethazine, cough methicillin, as well as cough syrup. Now, the total amount of the contaminant is still not known to us, whether that much was permitted or it was totally out of the place, and what was the causal relationship between the death. Was it occurring because of the problem related to the contamination by ethylene glycol is still not clear. But Government of India has also done a good job by asking the State Drug Control Authority of Haryana, in which this company called Maiden Pharmaceutical is located in Sonipat. And the drug controller has already picked up 13 samples, of which 14 in this batch have already been proved to be containing contaminants with the ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol. And they are also trying to catch hold of the rest of the samples and send to the regional laboratory, which is located in Chandigarh. I think, as Dr. Ishwar very rightly said, it is high time we take an upright stand that if this turns out to be true, it will be a big setback for the Indian pharmaceutical industry, which is at the moment a world leader. As India is trying to emerge out of the shackles of the COVID and the recent setbacks of inflation and price rise, it is important that we keep our head high. We should be more vigilant in supply of the drugs to the other countries, and all efforts must be made both at the level of the government as well as the state authorities before the drugs are allowed to go into the market. The minimum common practices should also be taken care of. We have to be absolutely strict about it. You cannot be complacent. The fact that the deaths have occurred and they have been reported to WHO, that itself is a big event. In fact, on its own also, Indian government has also clarified that whenever a drug is imported by a particular country, the country cannot take it on the face value that drug is good. In India also, by default, any drug which lands up in India, it is the responsibility of the drug controller of India to see the level of safety of this drug before it is allowed to be used in the general practice. So that much has to be done. So we presume the Gambian community and Gambian drug authorities and health authorities would have looked into this aspect and would have seen that these samples were safe. It is very difficult to believe the samples would have been contaminated later on. But the fact it has been reported that the children have died possibly because of this contamination, I think we have to take it seriously. We must up our ante. We have to be absolutely strictly vigilant in our common minimal practice, because if this turns out to be true, this will be a big setback for our pharma industry. All efforts must be made to be absolutely strict and vigilant, both at the level of the state and the national government.
Yes. On that note, Dr. Gulala, let me bring you back into the conversation. As has been pointed out by experts since yesterday to us, of course, India did export the drugs, but it does go through a very critical check in the entire supply chain. Do you believe that there is something, something amiss here? The fact that this sort of a drug, a faulty drug, has reached another nation, and within the supply chain, nobody has been alerted of the fact. given that the death toll has reached 66?
No, firstly, we need to establish whether the drug is a faulty or falsified later on. So whether it has originated in a right form and then it was repacked somewhere and there was something wrong happened. And as Dr. Anil said, that it is also a duty and responsibility of a country concerned wherever it lands, they should have their checks and balances in place. So sometimes somebody will send a gold and it will be maybe dust. So are you not going to check whether gold or not? So if for only commercial thing you check it, the things which are used for human purpose, you are bound to check it. Secondly, nowhere it has happened. So I don't know whether this was only manufactured for Gambia or manufactured internationally for other international community also. So I think we need to look at all those issues. There's something definitely fishy. It is not clear-cut picture. But the way WHO hounded on India, that is very bad. That is not dissent at all. So I think Government of India should take a very strict stand that when you are part of any intergovernmental organization, whether it's the UN, WHO, UNAIDS or ILO, I think they should have their own decency. Government of India doesn't speak anything against WHO Director General, and more so, the same Director General was in Gujarat just 2 or 3 months before. He was hugging and shaking hands with our Prime Minister Modi. After that, at least he should have some decency. So I think there is something fishy. I don't know what is a total ball game. Secondly, I have known, being part of a lot of international community and communities also, that a lot of such organizations, including US government, they work under tremendous pressure from multinational companies and which have a major stake in pharma. So in the means of money, they are number one. In means of saving life, we are number one because we sell the drugs at 1 to 2% of international cost. So under this situation, these pharma companies bring a lot of pressure on such organizations, particularly multinational organization, intergovernmental organization like WHO. And then they speak their language. They don't speak their own language. So I am very critical about the role of MNCs in here. A lot of MNCs function in India. They get the drug manufactured from Indian companies. They are just say manufactured by X company, marketed by Abbott, marketed by GSK. And at the same time, if something is found, they say, they put a hand, no, it is not our matter. So I think under this situation, Government of India should, number one, come out very strict role of central government and state government. And when it is dealing with the human life, they have to be very particular. Number two, whether it is for international purpose or domestic purpose, it has to be very clear. Number three, all non-prescription practices should stop forthwith. Every time there is some kind of spurious drug found, then we again come back to the same thing, but again back to square one. So every time we blame on doctors, we blame on pharma companies, we blame on something, but blame on system. System is a total failure. And same chemist association went to Supreme Court against one pharma companies that 1,000 crores were distributed. Where is chemist association when they are talking about selling the drug without prescription? And sometimes you see antibiotics are sold as a 2 tablets or 4 tablets or 6 tablets when the dose is 10 tablets. So I think we should come on, because all such things, they are pointer to our failure of system. And they should also look at the system. We should try to take some lessons from the experience of the past, which has happened in 1986. I think same product, diethyl glycol and ethyl glycol, is part of that thing and here. So if we would have, because it looks like glycerin. Glycerin is sweet, even this diethyl glycerol is also sweet, but it is damn cheap. So people are likely to abuse or use it. So if we would have taken checks and balances from 1986, when the commission report was out in 88, I think we should have been very particular about any such mixture. So whether it happening either in the industry or at a middleman level. And I am sure this could be just a middleman job, because there are a lot of people who are marketing Indian product in Africa. They are not pharma companies, they are middlemen. And they know that Indian pharma company, which is selling the product at 1% cost, they can inflate the cost by 3 times, 4 times, make a huge profit and sell it to Africa. So under this situation, I think we should be very vigilant. We should look at this situation and we should request WHO that this time is okay, but next time it is not okay at all.
All right. I thank both our panelists for joining us this morning to take our viewers through what really is happening as far as these faulty cough syrups are concerned.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.